You're not even half the lady my mom is." Those cutting remarks from my daughter-in-law Valerie hung in the air that night as I placed the dessert I'd prepared with care on the table. A heavy quiet settled over the dining area. My pulse raced quickly. Without pausing, I slid my chair away and responded, "Then she can begin covering your housing costs." My son, Robert, turned ashen. "Housing? What housing?" he shouted, his gaze startled. Right then, I realized my world was set to shift dramatically. And this disclosure marked only the start of a tale nobody anticipated. My name is Shirley. I'm 70 years old. And on that evening, I learned that a parent's endless devotion could turn into her biggest vulnerability. For half a year, I had quietly covered the $800 monthly fee for the unit where Robert and Valerie resided. I saw it as my role to assist my child during his money troubles. I never thought that as I drained my lifetime funds, they viewed me as a nuisance, as somebody lesser they could belittle with no repercussions. It began half a year before when Robert visited my home, eyes wet, stating he had been let go from work and they lacked funds for their fee. "Mom, it will just be for several weeks until I secure another position," he had said in that fragile tone that always swayed me. Like any parent who adores her offspring, I acted instantly. I tapped into my reserves, the cash I had gathered bit by bit across decades as a tailor, and commenced settling their fee without Valerie knowing. "It is our private matter, Mom," Robert had urged. "I do not wish Valerie to feel ashamed for relying on you." How innocent I was to trust he was safeguarding his spouse's dignity when he was really shielding his own role as supporter. As I measured each penny to aid them, they carried on like all was usual, eating out at restaurants, purchasing fresh attire, and arranging trips I knew were beyond their means. That evening's meal had been meaningful. I had passed the whole day preparing his preferred dish, chicken and mushroom gravy, rice alongside greens, and that vanilla custard he had cherished from childhood. The table was arranged flawlessly with the crystal where I received from my parent and the silver utensils I reserved for important events. Valerie came in a stylish crimson gown and footwear that likely exceeded my regular food budget. From their entry, I sensed an odd atmosphere. Valerie wore that artificial grin I recognized well, the kind she displayed before something displeasing. Robert appeared anxious, shifting his focus and repeatedly checking his device. Throughout the meal, talk was strained. Valerie found fault with all: the dish warmth, my residence style, even the room spray aroma in the sitting area. "Surely, do you not feel it is due to update this spot somewhat?" she had remarked in that patronizing manner that irritated me greatly. "My mother's dwelling is far more contemporary. She owns those popular, simple designs." I grinned, aiming to keep peace. Yet inwardly, my frustration grew. I had occupied that residence for 3 decades. Each item carried a recollection. Each space shared a history. As dessert arrived, I hoped for a nicer time at last. I had crafted the custard with great attention, recalling how Robert once consumed it eagerly as a youngster, declaring me the finest chef anywhere. But rather than thanks, I got phrases that stung my spirit like spikes. "You are not half the lady my mom is." The force of those phrases felt like a strike across the cheek. I halted with the custard ladle hovering midway, sensing a surge of feeling rise in my throat. Valerie eyed me with a harsh smirk, as though she had awaited the entire night for the ideal chance to wound me. Robert dropped his gaze, evading mine. In that second, I realized he had known of his spouse's scheme. "Pardon me," I somehow uttered, my tone shaking, though I had caught her clearly. Valerie reclined in her seat with fake poise, like she owned my residence, and restated the phrases with added harshness. "You caught it, surely. My mother is an accomplished, self-reliant lady who created her own business. She has never required anybody. She owns her firm, her seaside property in Florida. Her journeys to Europe. You merely handle preparing meals and stitching. Every phrase struck my core. I reflected on all the years I labored from dawn until late stitching gowns for debut parties, adjusting outfits for bridegrooms, embroidering linens for others' ceremonies, while I lacked opportunity to arrange my own. I recalled the restless nights when Robert was young and feverish, how I traded my scarce ornaments to cover his schooling fees, and how I took extra hours so he could possess all he required. "Valerie, stop," Robert whispered faintly, lacking the power to protect me properly. Those pair of phrases were more painful than quiet, since they proved he sided with his spouse, that he had joined this intended shame. My child, the identical boy who once called me his champion, was now permitting me to be handled like a helper in my personal dwelling. "No, Robert, allow me to complete," Valerie went on in that shrill pitch she employed to seem better. "Your parent must face the facts. My mother would never let her child exist in this averageness." She waved dismissively, gesturing at my dining space where numerous lovely recollections resided. "She would have aided us to obtain something superior. She would not have trapped us in hardship with her phony generosity." It was then that a part of me broke. It was not merely the unfairness of her phrases, but the total lack of thanks from somebody who had lived off my kindness unknowingly. For half a year I had funded the shelter over their proud heads. I had skipped treatments for my joint pain to guarantee they had a pleasant spot to stay. I stood gradually from my seat, experiencing an energy boost I had not known in ages. "Very well, Valerie," I stated with a steadiness that amazed me. "If your parent is so exceptional, if she is such a finer lady than I, then I believe it is due for her to take on the duties a capable lady ought to manage." Robert eyed me bewildered, but Valerie retained that arrogant grin as if she had triumphed in a contest. "Precisely, surely. I am pleased you at last grasp your role in this household." "Oh, I grasp my role entirely," I answered, my tone strengthening with every phrase, and my role no longer involved settling the $900 monthly for your unit at 420 Hamilton Street, apartment 3. The quiet that came was so profound I could detect the kitchen timer ticking. Robert rose so suddenly he toppled his water cup. "What fee?" he cried, his gaze broad, staring at me like I had used an unknown tongue. "What do you mean, Mom?" Valerie's smug grin had disappeared entirely. Now she regarded me with a blend of fear and bewilderment that brought me great pleasure. "The fee I have faithfully settled each month since February," I went on, relishing every instant of their shock. $900 that leaves my account on the 5th each month, plus the $100 extra charges the owner adds for electronic transfer. $100 altogether that I settle so you may reside easily while you slight me." Robert sank into his seat as if his limbs failed him. "But you said you spoke to the owner, that he was allowing delay to gather the funds," he stuttered, his tone shattered. Valerie glared at him with an anger I had never witnessed, as though he had spoiled her victory instant. I deceived. I confessed without any regret. I deceived because I believed I was supporting my child. I believed it was short-term. I believed you would value the effort one day. But now I realize that to you I am merely a foolish elderly lady who merits being shamed." Valerie attempted to recover her poise, but her tone had shed its proud assurance. Surely I was unaware. "You, Robert, never informed me that you were settling." She started to falter, but I cut her short, lifting my palm. "I have no interest in your reasons, dear, if your parent is as amazing as you claim. I am certain she will gladly handle this duty. After all, a lady so capable and self-reliant would face no issue funding her child and son-in law's fee, correct." The sarcasm in my tone was so clear that even Robert cringed. The mood in the dining space was so heavy you could slice it with a blade. Valerie shifted her look between Robert and me, as if rapidly assessing the effects of what she had learned. Robert's palms shook, and he had begun to perspire. "Mom, Why did you not reveal the facts?" he at last inquired, his tone fracturing. "Why did you lead me to think you had arranged something with the owner?" Robert's inquiry resounded in the dining space like an aching, "I deceived because you are my child, Robert. Because when you arrived at my home weeping, saying you had lost all and lacked even cash for meals, I could not stand aside and see the boy I nurtured, the man I cherish beyond my own existence." Endure. Valerie stayed quiet, but I could observe her thoughts speeding to grasp the effects of my disclosure. The rosy shade from her costly cosmetics had faded from her face, and she appeared pale. Robert passed his fingers through his hair, a motion he had done since youth when uneasy or frightened. "I deceived," I went on, my tone gaining strength, "because I thought it was short-term, because I trusted that once you stabilized financially and secured steady employment, you would appreciate me. I never pictured that as I denied myself joint pain treatments, as I ceased purchasing meat to reserve those $900 monthly, you pair were scheming to shame me in my personal residence." Robert attempted to cut in, but I lifted my palm to quiet him. "No, now you will hear me, Robert. For half a year I have dined on rice and eggs. I have worn the identical damaged footwear because I lacked funds for replacements. You know what occurred last week. I traded your father's marriage band. That band I treasured as my dearest keepsake merely to settle your fee and keep some provisions in my pantry. Tears filled my eyes, but they were from anger, not sorrow. I traded the sole tangible reminder I had of my spouse, of the man who cherished me for 3 decades, to sustain a pair who deemed me lesser, ordinary, and unworthy of esteem." Valerie at last spoke, though it was faint and unsteady now. "Surely I was unaware. Robert never informed me that you were settling," but I halted her with a stare that could have fused metal. "Naturally, you were unaware, dear, because your spouse opted to deceive you also. He chose for you to think he had earned the cash himself rather than confess he relied on his parent." Ordinary, I uttered the term ordinary with such spite that Valerie clearly shrank. Robert at last burst, "Mom, I never intended it this way. You pushed. I did not request you to give up so much." His tone sounded frantic, like a youngster found in falsehood, but his phrases only stoked my anger. "I pushed," I shouted, at last dropping my calm. "You arrived at my home crying like a toddler. You said you could not even buy bread, that Valerie wept nightly from the disgrace of failing to meet bills. What sort of parent would I have been if I had shut my door on you?" The quiet that came was crushing. Robert eyed Valerie with a glare of blame that she mirrored with matching force. It was evident that there were hidden matters and deceptions on both parts, and that neither had been fully truthful with the other. "You know what pains the most, Robert," I went on, sensing the tears rolling down my lined cheeks. "It is not the cash. It is not the effort. It is that for all these months, every time you visited, I detected disdain in your gaze." Valerie found fault with my residence, my dishes, my attire, my habits, all while unaware that my funds were funding her shelter. "And you simply allowed her." Robert attempted to near me, but I stepped away. "Mom, please permit me to clarify." "There is nothing to clarify." I halted him abruptly. "The clarification just emerged. Your spouse thinks I am not half the lady her parent is. Well, then her parent can demonstrate what sort of lady she is by managing her duties." Valerie at last gathered some bravery to talk, though her tone still quivered. Surely, my phrases were. They were uttered in a time of. I was distressed about other matters. I halted her with a sharp chuckle. "You were distressed about dining at the residence of the lady who settles your fee, distressed because you had to act polite with somebody you view so lesser." The strain in the air was so thick you could have sliced it with a blade. Robert moved about the dining space like a trapped creature, while Valerie sat wringing a cloth between her shaking palms. "You know what is the most tragic part of all this?" I went on, sensing a peculiar peace descend on me. "I truly trusted we were kin, When I wed your father, Robert, I envisioned having numerous offspring with grandchildren dashing through this residence with family meals filled with joy and affection. After years attempting to conceive, when you at last arrived, I thought God had granted me the finest present anywhere. Robert halted and eyed me, his gaze filled with tears. Mom, I cherish you. No, I cherish you. Cherish is not merely phrases, child. Cherish is deeds. It is esteem. It is safeguarding. When your spouse slights me and you remain quiet, when you permit her to shame me in my personal residence, when you deceive me to conceal that you rely on me financially, that is not cherish, that is ease. Valerie rose suddenly, toppling her seat. That is sufficient. I will not remain here and hear this lecture. Robert, we are departing now. Her tone had recovered some of her typical pride, but I could detect the fear in her gaze. No, Robert stated firmly, astonishing us both. We are not departing until we resolve this. Mom, please take a seat. We must converse like grown-ups, but I had already chosen. There is nothing remaining to converse about, Robert. The facts are revealed. Your spouse has clarified her views about me, and you have demonstrated that you concur with her. Beginning tomorrow, I will cease settling your fee. If Valerie's parent is as exceptional as she claims, I am certain she will discover a method to assist you. But, Mom, you cannot do that, Robert wailed, and for the initial time that night, I detected true dread in his gaze. We lacked the cash. I was dismissed 2 weeks past. I planned to inform you after the meal. Robert's phrases struck the dining space like an explosion. You were dismissed 2 weeks past. I restated gradually, a fresh surge of deceit flooding over me, and you said nothing. You permitted your spouse to shame me, knowing you were fully reliant on me. My tone fractured on the final phrase, not from sorrow, but from a fury so deep that my palms shook. Valerie turned to Robert, her gaze burning with rage. What? You were dismissed 2 weeks past, and you said nothing to me. I have been using cash as if all were usual while she could not complete the phrase. She placed her palms over her face and started weeping theatrically like a performer in a drama. Valerie, please permit me to clarify. Robert started, but she halted him with a sharp inhale. Do not tell me to relax. Just yesterday, I purchased those $400 footwear. Last week, I reserved the wellness center for my celebration. Robert, we are bankrupt, and you allowed me to use like a fool. Her tears had fully smudged her cosmetics, and now she appeared precisely like what she was, a frantic and fearful lady. I observed the bizarre scene, sensing a peculiar blend of pleasure and ache. For months, I had borne the burden of sustaining this pair, and now they were at last confronting the truth of their circumstances. Robert appeared beaten. His posture drooped and his face in his palms. You know what is the most pitiful part of all this, Robert? I stated with a peace that amazed me. Even now, after learning that you have been deceiving me and shaming me, my initial urge is to inquire if you require aid. That is what a parent does, child. That is what endless devotion does. Robert eyed up at me, and for a second I saw the small boy who used to dash to me when he had bad dreams. Mom, I lost my position because I arrived late 3 times consecutively. Valerie had been unwell, and I had to tend to her. Take her to the physician, and Valerie halted him with a deadly stare. I was not unwell. I had visits with my skin specialist for my appearance procedures. Do not blame me for your carelessness. The facade had dropped entirely. The stylish, better lady who had entered my residence had vanished, exposing somebody crude and frantic. Appearance procedures, I inquired in shock. Are you saying my child lost his position because he had to escort you to appearance procedures while I traded my ornaments to fund your shelter? A chuckle, so sharp it alarmed me, left my throat. Robert neared me, his palms extended in a begging motion. Mom, please, I know I erred. I know I disappointed you, but you cannot forsake us now. We have nowhere to turn. Valerie's folks are in Europe, and Valerie halted him once more. My folks are not in Europe. They are local. You instructed me to say we were okay so they would not fret. One deception after another was being uncovered like the peels of a spoiled fruit. "And now, how many positions have you lost, Robert?" I inquired in a tone so soft I could scarcely hear it. "How many times have you deceived me?" The quiet that came was overwhelming. Robert could not meet my gaze, and Valerie had begun to weep again. But this time it was more real, as if she had at last grasped the scale of their circumstances. 3 positions in the past 2 years, Robert at last confessed, his tone shattered. "I always created reasons. I always said it was short term, that firms were reducing staff." He halted and eyed me with those gaze that were once my entire universe. "Mom, I have an issue. I think I have a genuine issue. For the initial time that night, I sensed something like mercy. My child was not just a deceiver. He was somebody who required expert assistance, but mercy did not remove the deceit. It did not mend the injuries his phrases and his spouse's phrases had caused in my core. Robert, I stated gradually, acknowledging you have an issue is the initial move, but I cannot continue being your fallback while you do nothing to alter. I cannot continue giving up my welfare to uphold an existence based on deceptions." Valerie rose suddenly, drying her tears with the sleeve of her crimson gown. "This is absurd, surely. You are his parent. Parents do not forsake their offspring. My parent would never act this to me." The pride had returned to her tone like a protective shield. "Your parent has never faced this because you have never revealed the facts to her." I answered with a frosty peace, "And you are correct about one matter, Valerie. Parents do not forsake their offspring. But I am not forsaking my child. I am halting him from exploiting me." Robert neared me and grasped my palms in his. They were chilly and shaking. "Mom, I vow I am going to alter. I am going to seek assistance. I am going to secure a position. I am going to correct things this time. Just grant me one additional opportunity." I eyed those palms once so tiny that I had held when he learned to step, when he feared the night, when he required solace after a bad dream. "Robert, how many final opportunities have I granted you? How many times have you given me the identical vow?" He could not reply because we both knew the response. I had misplaced count of the times we had this exact discussion, of the shattered vows and lost hopes. "Your agreement ends next month," I declared, softly drawing my palms from his. "You have 30 days to discover a resolution. After that, I will no longer handle your lodging." Valerie rushed toward the entrance. "Let us go, Robert. I am not remaining here to be shamed by a lady who does not grasp what kin means." But Robert did not shift. "Valerie, you may depart if you wish. I must converse with my parent." His tone had a strength I had not detected in ages, and for a second, just for a second, I saw a hint of the man he could have been. Valerie halted abruptly when she heard Robert's phrases. She turned gradually, her face a blend of shock and utter rage. "You are asking me to depart after all I have given for this union." Her tone had become high, almost frantic, and she waved with her palm, as if directing an unseen group. "Valerie, please, I must resolve this with my mom. Too much has occurred tonight." Robert attempted to clarify, but she halted him with an inhale that likely roused the whole area. "No, I am not going anywhere. If you are going to beg like a hound before your parent, you are going to do it with me present." She folded her arms and positioned herself solidly in the middle of my dining space like a figure of obstinacy. "Besides, this discussion impacts me directly. If she ceases settling our fee, where will we reside? In a shelter for the homeless." I observed the scene with a blend of interest and dread. In one night, I had seen the ideal exterior this pair had constructed collapse, exposing the deceptions they had been spinning for months. It was like viewing a vehicle accident in gradual motion. Awful, but impossible to avert gaze from. "Valerie," I stated at last, "I think you have spoken plenty for one night. You have clarified what you think of me, and I have been equally clear about what I think of the pair of you. There is not much more to debate." "Yes, there is much more to debate," she yelled, her face as crimson as her gown. "You cannot destroy our lives just because you were upset by a remark, can forgive, can assist each other. The falsehood of her phrases hit me like a strike. Can assist each other, I restated gradually. Do you mean the way you have assisted me tonight? Or the way Robert has assisted me by deceiving about his work? Or perhaps you mean the way you have assisted me by allowing me to give up my reserves while you live like nothing is amiss. Robert sat heavily in one of the dining seats, his head in his palms. Mom, I know we have committed awful errors. I know we have wounded you in unforgivable manners. But if you reject us now, we truly have nowhere to turn. That is not my concern, I answered, the phrases emerging with a severity that amazed even myself. For 70 years I have been caring for others. I cared for my folks until they passed. I cared for your father through his sickness. I have cared for you since the day you were born. Do you know when the last time somebody cared for me was? When was the last time somebody concerned about my welfare? The quiet that came was profound and aching. Robert raised his head and eyed me with a face I had not seen since he was a small boy. That blend of remorse and comprehension that appeared when he at last realized he had done something very wrong. Never, he confessed in a scarcely audible tone, I have never concerned about caring for you. I always presumed you would be there, that you would always be okay, that you would always possess the power to resolve all issues. Valerie seemed to be losing tolerance with this feeling talk. Enough of the theatrics, surely. You are the parent. It is your duty to assist your child. You cannot just choose you no longer wish to be a parent any more. Those phrases were the ultimate limit. I moved toward Valerie until I was merely inches from her face, and when I spoke, my tone was so soft and threatening she naturally shrank. Never ever instruct me what sort of parent I should be. I have been a parent for 35 years. I have given up my prime, my aspirations, my chances, my cash, my wellness, everything for my child. What have you given up? Your appearance procedures, your $400 footwear. Valerie attempted to reply, but I went on without allowing her opportunity. Being a parent does not mean being an endless fun source. Being a parent does not mean tolerating shame and disesteem. Being a parent means guiding your offspring to be accountable, self-reliant, respectful individuals, and in that I have clearly not succeeded. Robert rose suddenly, toppling his seat. Do not say that. You have been an amazing parent. I am the one who not succeeded. I am the one who erred. Yes, Robert, you not succeeded. But I also not succeeded by allowing it to reach this point, by allowing you to become a man who deceives his spouse, who deceives his parent, who permits the lady who nurtured him to be shamed. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but my tone stayed strong. Valerie had begun to move about the dining space like a trapped creature. This is a bad dream. This is a bad dream. In-laws are supposed to assist their daughters. In law, we are supposed to be kin. Kin, I halted her with a sharp chuckle. When have you ever handled me like kin, Valerie? When have you displayed me esteem, warmth, or thought? From the day you encountered Robert, you have handled me like a barrier, something bother, some you had to endure to retain your spouse content. That is not true, she objected. But her tone lacked assurance. It is not true, I inquired, folding my arms. Do you recall last holiday season, when you proposed it would be better for you to pass the holidays alone, because I did not grasp current customs? Do you recall when I proposed to prepare for your milestone, and you said you favored something more refined? Do you recall when you found fault with me for donning my preferred violet gown, because ladies my age should choose more muted shades? Each instance I provided was like a minor jab, and I could observe Robert wince with every recollection. He had been present for all those events. He had caught every wounding remark, and he had never uttered a word in my protection. Valerie, I went on, you never wished to be part of this kin. You wished this kin to vanish, so you could possess Robert entirely to yourself. Well, congratulations. It appears you are going to obtain precisely what you desired. Robert neared me, his gaze filled with tears. Mom, please give if that is what you want. Surely, then fine. But do not come weeping to me when you realize you have lost your soul child forever. When you are all alone in this aged residence, encircled by your stale recollections, recalling that you had a kin and you expelled them for your foolish pride. Her phrases were crafted to injure me, to make me feel remorse, to shatter my determination, and for a second they nearly succeeded. The picture of being alone in this residence without visits, without phone contacts, without anybody who required me, was frightening. Valerie's phrases resounded in the dining space like a curse directed at my deepest fear, isolation. For a second, the image she had depicted seized my thoughts. I saw myself in this vacant residence without the joy of grandchildren who never arrived, without weekend phone contacts, without anybody to recall my celebration. The quiet between us was thick, and I could sense Robert observing me, awaiting my determination to fracture. But then something remarkable occurred. Instead of sensing panic or despair, I sensed a profound and freeing peace. "You know what, Valerie?" I stated gradually, relishing each phrase. "I would rather be alone and calm than accompanied and shamed. I favor my stale recollections of a joyful union and years of truthful labor to living an existence of fresh recollections built on deceptions and disesteem." Valerie blinked several times as if she had not anticipated that reply. Robert's mouth dropped open. He was gradually grasping that his final feeling pressure card had not succeeded entirely. Besides, I went on, sensing a fresh vitality flowing through me. "I am not going to be as alone as you believe. Just yesterday, I received a contact that altered everything, but you pair were so occupied scheming how to shame me tonight that I did not get to share with you." Michael Jenkins contacted. The name struck the dining space like an atomic device. Robert froze, and for the initial time that night, Valerie was fully mute. Michael had been my suitor in university, the man I had intended to wed before I encountered Robert's father. He was a driven, smart man who had chosen to relocate to America to pursue better chances when I opted to remain and begin a kin. "Michael Jenkins," Robert whispered, his tone shaking. "The Michael from the pictures, your university suitor." I nodded gradually, enjoying the face of total astonishment on their faces. The one and only. Turns out after 40 years of developing an engineering firm in Seattle, after nurturing 3 accomplished kids and losing his spouse 2 years past, he chose to search for his former companions. He located me on social platforms, and we have been conversing on the phone for the past 2 weeks. Valerie at last spoke, though it sounded choked. "What do you mean you have been conversing?" Her face had turned a sickly greenish hue that did not suit her at all. "I mean precisely that. We have been conversing daily, recalling past times, updating on our existences, our achieved and unachieved aspirations, and last night he gave me an offer that left me breathless." Robert neared me with hesitant steps. "What sort of offer, Mom?" I grinned for the initial time that night, a real grin that came from the core of my spirit. "He asked me to pass a month at his residence in Seattle. He says he wishes to display me Washington State, present me to his kids, and that he has always pondered what would have occurred if I left the phrase unfinished, enjoying the total quiet that had overtaken the dining space. But, Mom," Robert stuttered, "you cannot go with a man you have not seen in 40 years. What if he is a fraud? What if he is deceiving you? What if, Robert?" I halted him with a surprising strength. "What if he proves to be a deceiver just like you? What if he exploits me just like you have? At least with Michael, I will be on a journey, viewing new spots and being appreciated for who I am, not for what I can provide financially." Valerie had sunk into a seat, her face in her palms. "This cannot be occurring. This is a bad dream. You cannot be serious about departing with a stranger. Michael is not a stranger to me. He knows my aspirations, my worries, my hopes because we shared them when we were youthful. He knows I always wished to journey, that I always wished to view the Pacific Ocean, that I always dreamed of composing a book about my years as a tailor. Do you know what the initial thing he said to me was when he contacted? He said, "Shirley, I hope you have pursued all your aspirations because you merit an exceptional existence." Tears started to roll down my cheeks, but they were tears of happiness, not sorrow. When was the last time you pair inquired about my aspirations? When was the last time you concerned if I was content, if I had plans, if there was anything I wished to do with my existence? Robert attempted to near me, but I lifted my palm to halt him. Michael sent me pictures of his residence, of his yard full of orange and yellow blooms, of the ocean sight from his porch. He told me about his journeys to Europe, about the books he has read, about the meals he prepares for his companions every Friday. And you know what else he told me. Valerie raised her head to eye me, her gaze red and filled with bitterness. What did he tell you? He told me that a lady my age and with my background is a gem. He said, "I have tales to share, insight to offer, and affection to provide." He told me that any man would be fortunate to have my companionship, my discussion, my warmth. My tone fractured slightly as I recalled those phrases that had mended injuries I did not even know I had. After I ended that contact, I sat in my kitchen and wept for an hour, but I did not weep from sorrow. I wept from ease. I wept because somebody had at last reminded me that I am more than a parent, more than a supporter, more than a free helper. I am a lady with my own worth. Robert had gone pale. "Mom, please do not make any rushed choices because of what occurred tonight. Michael might just be saying what you wish to hear. Frauds are very smart. Stop it," I shouted with a force that amazed even me. "Stop attempting to direct my existence. Stop instructing me what I can or cannot do. For 35 years I have lived for you. I have made every choice considering your welfare, your future, your contentment. For the initial time in decades, I am going to make a choice considering myself." The quiet that came was overwhelming. Robert had sunk into a seat, his head in his palms, weeping like a small child. Valerie eyed me with a blend of hate and dread, as if she had seen a specter. "You know what else Michael told me," I went on, sensing my assurance grow with every phrase. "He said he had kept a picture of me from when we were 20, the one where I am donning the white gown with red blooms that I crafted myself. He told me that all these years, especially after his spouse passed, he would eye that picture and ponder if I had been content, if I had managed to achieve my aspirations." Robert eyed up, his gaze swollen from weeping. "And what did you tell him?" I told him the facts. I told him that I had had times of contentment, especially when you were small, when your father was alive, when I thought I was constructing something lovely called kin. But I also told him that I had given up so much of myself in the process that I no longer recalled who Shirley was before she was Robert's parent or Charles's widow. Valerie rose suddenly, as if she had been stung by a bee. "This is absurd. You cannot go with that man. What will people say, a lady your age pursuing romantic journeys like a youth?" I eyed her directly in the gaze and grinned with a peace I had not sensed in years. "Valerie, my dear, after tonight, what people think is the final thing I concern about. After all, if my own kin considers me lesser and ordinary, what does the view of strangers matter?" Robert at last found the power to talk. "Mom, if you truly wish to encounter Michael, if you truly wish to journey, we could assist you. Just do not do it out of resentment. Do not destroy your existence just to penalize us. Destroy my existence?" I restated in shock. "Robert, do you not grasp? This is not a choice made out of resentment. This is a choice for survival. For the initial time in decades, somebody is offering me a chance to be content, to be appreciated, to be cherished for who I am, not for what I can provide." I moved to the dining space window and eyed outside at the street where I had resided for so many years, where I had nurtured my child, where I had buried so many aspirations. Tomorrow I am going to contact Michael and accept his ask. I am going to purchase a flight pass, pack a case with my finest gowns, and discover if it is still possible to be content at 70. The weeks that came after that meal were the oddest of my existence. Robert attempted to contact me daily for the initial week, leaving frantic messages on my machine. I told him about my years of stitching, about the bridal gowns I had made, about the tales each customer had shared with me. It was odd and marvelous to feel engaging again, to feel that somebody appreciated my background and recollections. Surely, he said to me during one of our late evening contacts, I have been pondering about you for 40 years. When I wed my spouse, when my kids were born, when I developed my firm, there was always a part of me that pondered what would have occurred if I had been courageous enough to ask you to come to America with me. His phrases filled me with a warmth I had not sensed in decades. Michael, I pondered about you many times, too. Especially when things were difficult, when your father was ill, when Robert began having issues. I pondered what my existence would have been like if I had boarded that plane with you. Well, he answered with that profound laugh I recalled perfectly. It is never too late to discover, is it? The flight pass lay on my bedside table, real and concrete, like a vow of liberty. Departure March 15th. Destination, Seattle, Washington. Michael had pushed to cover the pass, but I had declined his offer. This is my choice, my journey, I had told him. I wish to cover it with my own cash, the cash I had reserved for months by denying myself treatments and proper meals. Cash I would now use for something that would make me content for the initial time in years. 3 days before my journey, Robert appeared at my door. He looked awful, thin with deep shadows under his gaze, his attire creased as if he had slept in them. "Mom, please, we must converse," he said in a shattered tone that despite everything fractured my core. I allowed him in, but maintained my feeling distance. "Where is Valerie?" I inquired as I prepared coffee in my small kitchen. "At her folks' house," he answered, sitting heavily on my kitchen seat. "She departed a week past. She says she cannot be with me if I lack a position, if I cannot uphold the way of life she merits." He chuckled sharply. "Turns out her better parent is not so better when it comes to aiding financially. They instructed her to manage herself." I sensed a surge of pleasure that was not especially honorable, but which I could not assist. "So, what are you going to do now?" "I have been frantically searching for work. I have applied everywhere, Mom. Offices, eateries, shops, building, anything. I am prepared to do anything." He eyed up at me, and I saw something in his gaze I had not seen in years, real humility. "I have also been attending counseling. I found a community center that provides free aid." "I am pleased to hear that, Robert," I stated, and I meant it. "That is a major move. The counselor aided me grasp many things about myself that I did not wish to see. He aided me grasp that I have been a feeling and financial leech, not just with you, but with everyone who has attempted to assist me." His phrases sounded practiced, as if he had rehearsed this talk many times before a reflector. "And what have you learned specifically?" I inquired, curious to see if there had truly been a shift or if this was just another scheme. Robert took a moment to reply, anxiously playing with his coffee mug. "I have learned that I never learned to be accountable because you were always there to save me. It is not your fault," he quickly added when he saw my face. "It is mine, but the habit was established very early on, and I never made the effort to break it." I nodded gradually. "And Valerie, what did you learn about your bond with her, that what I felt for her was not cherish?" "It was feeling reliance. I liked that she was demanding and fault-finding because it gave me a reason not to mature, to continue being a youngster who required his mom to save him." He halted and eyed me directly in the gaze. "Mom, I know I do not merit your pardon. I know I have ruined our bond, but I need you to know that for the initial time in my grown life, I am seeing things clearly. And what exactly do you see? I inquired carefully. I see a 70-year old lady who gave up her whole existence for a child who never valued it. I see a lady who labored her palms to the bone to give me schooling and chances that I squandered. I see a lady who merits to be content, who merits to be appreciated, who merits to pursue her own aspirations after decades of pursuing mine. His phrases moved me, but they also made me wary. Robert, I am pleased to hear you are pondering on these things, but phrases are simple. Real shift takes time and steady deeds. I know, he stated, nodding strongly, and I am not here to ask you to cancel your journey. I am not here to ask for cash or aid. I am here to tell you that I am going to demonstrate with deeds that I can shift, even if you are no longer here to witness it. What do you mean by that? Robert rose and began moving my small kitchen. I got a position at a cleaning firm. It is night labor and the pay is low, but it is truthful and it permits me to reside in a small room I rented downtown. I am also taking web courses to obtain a certificate in bookkeeping. I eyed him in real astonishment. When did you choose to do all this? The night after our meal. When I got home and Valerie began shouting at me for ruining our money situation. Something inside me just broke. I realized I was 35 years old and had never been accountable for my own existence. Not for a single day. He sat down again and took my palms in his. Mom, I want you to go to Seattle. I want you to encounter Michael, to view the ocean, to compose that book you have always wished to compose. I want you to be content, even if it means I am no longer part of your existence. For the initial time since the night of the meal, I felt like I was conversing to my real child, not the scheming, reliant version I had known for so many years. Robert, you are always going to be part of my existence. You are my child, and you always will be. But I need you to grasp that our bond cannot remain the same. I grasp completely, he stated firmly, and I want you to know that I am going to work on becoming the sort of child you can be proud of, even if it takes years, even if by then it is too late to mend our bond. We sat in quiet for several minutes, each lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Robert spoke again. Will you tell me about Michael? What was he like when you were youthful? An involuntary grin spread across my face. He was brilliant, driven, kind. He had a way of making me feel like the most engaging lady anywhere. When we conversed, he would concentrate entirely on me, as if my phrases were the most vital thing he had ever heard. Why did you not go with him when he relocated to America? Because I was scared, I confessed, scared of leaving everything I knew, scared of failing, scared of not being sufficient for him. And then I encountered your father, and he represented safety, steadiness, a foreseeable existence. I halted. I do not regret choosing your father. He was a good man, and we had lovely times. But now I have a second opportunity to discover what would have occurred if I had been braver. Robert nodded gradually. Do you think Michael has truly pondered about you all these years? Or do you think he is idealizing the past? Robert's inquiry made me ponder deeply. You know, Robert, I have asked myself that same inquiry every night since Michael reached me. Is what he feels real, or are we just two aged people idealizing a youthful cherish? I rose and moved to the window, observing the yard where I had planted roses so many years past. But then I realized that it does not matter. What do you mean it does not matter? Robert inquired, genuinely curious. It does not matter if what we feel is nostalgia, idealization, or true cherish. What matters is that for the initial time in decades, I feel alive. I feel valuable. I feel like a lady who merits to be courted, admired, respected. I turned to eye him. When was the last time I felt that way? When was the last time anyone made me feel special just for being me? Robert lowered his head, ashamed. I never made you feel that way, did I? I always took you for granted. Something that would always be available no matter how I handled you. Exactly. And it was not just you, Robert. Your father, too. Toward the end of our union, he started to see me only as the lady who prepared, cleaned, and tended to him when he was ill. I stopped being Shirley and became just Charles's spouse, and then just Robert's parent. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Michael contacting at the time we had agreed on, as always. I eyed Robert, who nodded, indicating I should answer. "Hello, beautiful," Michael's tone said through the phone, and I immediately felt that familiar warmth spreading through my chest. "How was your day?" "Interesting," I answered, grinning despite the strain. "My child is here, Robert. Would you like to say hello to Michael?" Robert froze for a moment, but then gradually nodded. I put the phone on speaker. "Michael, I would like you to encounter Robert, my child. Robert, this is Michael Jenkins." "Hello, Robert. Yes, sir. It is complicated, but I am starting to grasp that my parent merits to be content, even if that means big shifts in our lives." "That is a very mature reply," Michael answered with approval. "I will tell you something, Robert. I have 3 kids, all grown, and it took them years to grasp that their folks are complete people with their own needs and desires, not just eternal suppliers of aid and resources." Robert eyed me in astonishment. It was clear he had not expected Michael to be so direct yet so understanding at the same time. "Mr. Jenkins," Robert went on, "can I ask you what your intentions are with my parent?" Michael chuckled softly. "That is a fair inquiry. My intentions are to get to know the lady the girl I fell and cherish with 40 years past became. My intentions are to display her beautiful spots, to present her to my kids, to prepare for her, to hear her tales, and perhaps if we both decide we wish to build a deep friendship or something more." "And if things do not work out as you expect," Robert inquired, "then we will have had a beautiful journey. We will have closed a chapter that was left open for decades, and your parent will have had a well-merited vacation in Washington. There is no pressure, Robert. No unrealistic expectations, just 2 older people giving themselves a chance to rediscover joy." Robert visibly relaxed. "Thank you for being so honest, sir. Call me Michael, please. And now, if you will excuse me, I would like to speak with your parent alone for a moment." Robert nodded and moved to the sitting room, giving me privacy for my phone contact. "How do you feel after conversing to him?" I inquired Michael once we were alone. "I feel good. He seems to be a young man going through a moment of growth." "That speaks well of how you nurtured him, surely. Children who never face difficulties never learn to be resilient." His phrases reassured me more than I expected. "Michael, are you certain you wish to involve yourself in your peaceful existence with a lady who has so much kin drama?" "Surely, my dear. We all have kin drama at our age. One of my sons got divorced last year and moved back into my residence with his 2 small kids. My daughter is having a midlife crisis and contacts me weeping every Tuesday. My youngest son is struggling with a video game addiction that is affecting his union." He laughed softly. "Kin drama is a part of existence. The difference is how we handle it and how you are handling it, with clear limits and with firm cherish, and by always remembering that your kids are grown responsible for their own choices and consequences. That is something you seem to be learning to do as well." After ending with Michael, Robert and I continued conversing late into the night. He told me more details about his counseling, about how he was learning to identify conduct patterns he had repeated for years without realizing it. "You know what was the hardest thing to accept in counseling?" he inquired me as we drank a second mug of coffee. "What? That it was not just that I was lazy or immature. It was that I had developed an feeling addiction to being saved. Every time somebody solved a problem for me, every time I was given cash or pulled out of a tight spot, I felt a kind of euphoric ease. It was like a drug. His phrases hit me hard, and how are you supposed to break that addiction? By facing the consequences of my deeds without seeking save. When I lost my last position, my initial urge was to come running to you with a sad tale. But this time instead, I slept in my vehicle for 3 days until I got the cleaning position. You slept in your vehicle, I inquired with automatic parental concern. Yes, and it was one of the most vital experiences of my existence. For the initial time, I truly grasped what it means to not have a safety net, what it means for my deeds to have real consequences. He eyed me directly in the gaze. Mom, during those 3 nights, I pondered a lot about you. I pondered about all the times you had to choose between your needs and mine, and you always chose mine. That is what parents do, Robert. No, Mom, that is what parents who have not learned to set healthy limits do. And that is what children who have never learned to be responsible grown-ups do. He leaned forward. The counselor aided me grasp that by constantly saving me, you were unintentionally depriving me of the chance to grow. His phrases hurt me, but they also freed me. For years, I had felt remorse every time I considered saying no to Robert. Every time I thought about putting my needs first. Now I grasped that my generosity had actually been a way of directing him, of keeping him reliant on me. So what happens now? I inquired softly. Now I am going to prove first to myself and then to you that I can be a responsible grown-up. I am going to pay my own bills. I am going to make my own choices. I am going to face my own problems. And when you return from Seattle, if you decide to return, I am going to be a child you can be proud of. And if I decide to stay in Seattle. Robert grinned, and for the initial time in years, I saw real joy in his grin instead of scheme. Then I will be content for you. I will visit you when I can. I will contact you every week, and I will live my own existence, knowing that my parent is finally living hers. The day of my departure dawned with a clear sky and a gentle wind that seemed to murmur vows of journeys to come. Robert arrived early to take me to the airport, and for the initial time in years there was no strain between us. He had brought blooms, a small bunch of white daisies that I knew were my favorite, and a sealed note. Do not open it until you are on the plane, he stated with a shy grin. It is something I needed to say to you, but it is easier for me to write than to speak. During the drive to the airport, we conversed about everyday things, the weather, the news, his plans for the week. It was a normal discussion between a parent and child, something we had not had in years. There were no pleas, no drama, no remorse, just a quiet discussion between 2 grown-ups who cherished each other but finally grasped healthy limits. Mom, he stated when we arrived at the airport, I want you to know that no matter what happens in Seattle, this has already been worth it. What do you mean? Seeing you like this, excited, nervous content, I have not seen you shine this way in years. He aided me take my case out of the vehicle, a case I had carefully packed with my finest gowns, including a new coral pink one I had purchased especially for this journey. At the airport, Robert walked me to the security gate. When it was time to say farewell, we hugged with an intensity we had not shared since he was a small boy. I cherish you, Mom, he whispered in my ear. Have fun, fall and cherish, be content. You merit it more than anyone anywhere. I cherish you too, child, and I am proud of the man you are becoming. Once on the plane, I opened Robert's note with shaking palms. His handwriting, which had always been untidy, looked more mature, more careful. Mum, it began. During these past few days, I have been pondering about all the times you were a hero without me noticing. When you worked extra hours to pay for my school supplies, when you traded your new stitching machine to buy me a bicycle, when you acted not to be hungry so I could eat more, when you stayed up all night tending to me when I was ill, all those moments of quiet cherish that I took for granted. Now I grasp that being a parent does not mean giving up yourself until you vanish. It means cherishing enough to teach independence. It means being brave enough to release when it is time. Thank you for finally cherishing me enough to let me mature. Fly high, Mom, literally and figuratively. With all my cherish and esteem, Robert P.S. Michael is a fortunate man to be encounter. The most remarkable lady anywhere. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I put the note back in my purse. Through the plain window, I could see the clouds extending out to infinity, and for the initial time in decades, I felt that my future was just as infinite. Michael was awaiting me at the Seattle airport with a bunch of yellow roses and a grin I recognized immediately, even though he had more lines, and his hair was fully white. When he saw me, his face lit up with the same joy I recalled from our university days. Shirley, he stated when we hugged, you are even more lovely than I recalled. The days that came were like living in a fantasy. Michael took me to see the Pacific coast where for the initial time in my existence I could see the oceans extending out to the horizon. He presented me to his kids who welcomed me with a real warmth that moved me deeply. His youngest daughter Carmen said, Dad has not grinned like that since Mom passed. Thank you for bringing back his joy. Michael prepared for me every night elaborate meals that we enjoyed on his porch while observing the sunset. I am not a retired engineer. I am just Michael, the man who fell in cherish with a brilliant girl 40 years past and never forgot her. His phrases went straight to my core because they expressed exactly what I felt with him. I was not Robert's giving parent. I was not Charles's widow. I was not the weary tailor. I was simply Shirley, a lady with tales to share, aspirations to pursue, and cherish to provide. At the end of my month in Seattle, Michael made me a proposal that shifted my view on what was possible at 70. Shirley, I do not want this to end. I know it is crazy. I know we are just getting to know each other again after so many years, but I want you to consider relocating to Seattle. Not to wed immediately, not to reside together if you do not want, but to give us the chance to construct something lovely at this stage of our lives. My initial urge was to think of all the reasons why it was impossible, my residence, my few companions, my existence in my hometown. But then I thought of Robert, of his note, of his phrases about flying high. I thought of Valerie, who had probably never truly esteemed me. I thought of all the years I had lived for others, putting my own aspirations on hold. What if things do not work out? I inquired, then we will have had a beautiful journey, but surely, what if they do work out? What if after a lifetime of putting others first, you finally have the opportunity to be completely content? That night, I contacted Robert to tell him about Michael's proposal. His reply astonished me and filled me with pride. Mom, are you content with him? Happier than I have been in decades. He handles me well. He esteems me. He makes me feel valuable every day. Then stay. Construct the existence you merit. I will be fine. In fact, I will be better knowing that you are finally living for yourself. 6 months later, I was packing my most treasured belongings in my old residence, getting ready to relocate to Seattle permanently. Robert aided me with the entire process, demonstrating a maturity and accountability that filled me with hope for his future. You know what the most ironic part of all this is? He stated to me as we packed up the kin pictures, "What that by releasing you, I feel like I have finally gotten you back. Not as the parent who constantly saves me, but as the remarkable lady you always were, but whom I never bothered to truly get to know." As I compose this tale from Michael's porch, observing the Pacific Ocean and awaiting him to return from the market, where he has gone to buy ingredients for the meal we will prepare together, I reflect on all that has shifted. Robert is successfully constructing his own existence. He got a promotion at his position. He relocated to a better unit and is dating a lady who challenges him to be a better person instead of enabling his reliance. Valerie, he told me, wed an older man who can uphold her way of life, which is probably for the best for everyone. And me, I finally learned that it is never too late to be content. I learned that cherish is not selfishness, but the foundation for being able to cherish others in a healthy way. I learned that a 70-year-old lady can have journeys, can fall and cherish, can begin over. Michael and I got wed last month in a small ceremony on the beach with his kids and Robert as witnesses. Robert wept throughout the entire ceremony, but they were tears of joy. I never thought I would see my parent wed for cherish. He told me afterward, "I always assumed your union to Dad had been just for convenience and kin. Now, when I look back at that awful night when Valerie humiliated me in my own residence, I see it as the greatest gift I could have received because it was that shame that finally woke me up. It was that shame that showed me I merited more. It was that shame that gave me the courage to pursue the contentment I thought I had lost forever. And you, what would you do if existence gave you a second opportunity to be completely content? Would you have the bravery to take it no matter what others think? Because believe me, it is never too late to begin over.